Hi, and welcome to Meet the Authors. And today we have the pleasure of speaking to one of our author advocates, Dave Griggs.
And we're pleased to have Dave today because he is a proofreader, and he also is a research expert, even doing family ancestry for a number of people. And he's going to start writing his own book soon. Hi, Dave. We're really pleased to have you. Thanks for joining us at Meet the Authors. As we mentioned in the introduction, Dave is multi-skilled, but the one thing I'm interested to start with is that Dave does a lot of work researching people's ancestries and historical stuff. I would like to know how you first got into that, because when we chatted, I don't think I've asked you ever.
Right. It was personal interest in where have I come from, where the families come from. And I'm going back to, the 1970s, 1980s. And it was difficult then because there was no internet, of course, and no ancestry to look up. And I mentioned it to a cousin of mine, her name is Valerie, and she must take all the credit for the start because she lived in London. She worked for the Museum of London. She had the same interests as I have, but she had access to Kew, where the records were kept. So rather than look online as I do nowadays, she would go in with pieces of paper, get photocopies of certificates or lists of births, deaths and marriages, and go through it hard, pencil and paper time. And she would tell me about her progress, but also on our birthday. I mean, she had the same birthday date. That would be a birthday present to me, would be, this is where I'm up to. And sometimes it was a piece of paper with I found so-and-so. Other times it was more like a treasure hunt. She said, well, open this first. Now, what do you think of this? And make it a bit more interesting. So as time went on, maybe 10 or 12 years, I've still got all the packets in the order that she gave me, because I think that's important. And then I got realised that there was I could do something on the computer, on the World Wide Web. So she kind of left it to me then. I was like, off you go, and expected me to push a button and for the full family tree to come out. But some of the stories that have come out, and every family has stories, and there were things that maybe were hushed up at the time because, well, that's in the past, and no need to wake up all the dirty goings on that went on.
It's what people used to do, isn't it, Dave? It's like, it was sort of the MO of families that, something we don't talk about that anymore. Yes, that's right, yeah. I remember.
I haven't been told by somebody who I was doing a tree for, and she told her mother, and her mother says, oh, don't you dare do anything with any of this and tell them to stop doing the research, which obviously I did. But there was one or two stories in there, and you think that could be getting tasty. And But you have to respect the wishes of whoever you're doing the tree for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, but getting back to me, I got. We went back to Valerie did to 1789 to sort of 4 times great grandfather and mother got married in a church in Cambridgeshire, and actually went there a few years ago, and it's very spooky because you're standing in the same doorway as your ancestors were 200 odd years ago.
Yeah.
And you think, and it's kind of give you a prickly feeling on the back of the neck. But it was real, that's how I kind of got into it. And I do other things, not just other people, but somebody, if they move into an old house, I've done that for people. And so I do a history of the house, House in Time, I think was a TV series, and who lived there and who died there and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of, I'm fishing through the whatever records and data that's available, and every now and again you get a Eureka moment, like Rob was alluding to before about somebody on a boat that got torpedoed, and you think, yeah, and it's something that the family have now forgotten, or at least they have little information about it, or distorted information. So So it's that kind of excitement I get, Eureka moments, as I say. It's got it, and you should, the first thing to do is try, well, have I really got it, and disprove it. But if all the arrows point in the right direction, then you think, yeah, I've got it. So that's how I kind of started.
I think, as you said there, the sort of the treasure hunt must be absolutely fascinating, sort of tracing them back, especially if it's overseas and, where the heritage came from. Must be really fascinating.
Yeah. And sometimes I think, to the people I'm doing it for, why should I have all the fun? Why can't they be sat with me and share the journey? And I know it's not always possible. Maybe people aren't as enthusiastic about it as I am, but I like to find things out which maybe other people don't know how to, or didn't know that they could. I got no magic wand. I don't have any special.
It can be quite hard work, can it, Dave? We watched a drama a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not usually so scathing, but I thought it was awful. I thought it was very lazily written, and I realised that to write it, you didn't have to do any research whatsoever. It's basically about people having affairs, and I feel I'm quite meticulous about my research, and I enjoy it, and then I find out things. But I go as far. I mean, it's a bit nervous knowing you're looking over my shoulder, but it's a good thing. I know you check everything when you read stuff, but you need that. So, I mean, research, Lee's learned this. Research is so very, very important when you're writing a book that's, even if it's 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I know you did, Lee, don't you? You found that was quite a challenge, because you got to work out exactly where somebody was on such a date, and were they still married to such a body and all that. Yeah.
And I think I had that same sort. So mine's very much about real life conspiracies, or real life events that have a conspiracy element to them in my stories. But it was trying to position a certain person at a certain place, like Rob was saying, and then there was one of them. I was just like, how do I get from there to there? And then I looked and I found that Kid Can was actually in that place at that time. He fitted the character bill, and I was like, he's absolutely perfect, and it's like they say, a Eureka moment. But what I wanted to make sure was whoever read my book could actually go through and pick out any of the story or any of the actual conspiracies and research it, and they will find that it did exist. And I tried to make it right to the very last moment where I put, switch it to sort of fictional elements of it. Because I wanted every vehicle to be a real vehicle at that time,
Right. Yeah.
Because it's important, isn't it? The last thing you want is somebody researching it and going, "Hang on a minute, that didn't come out till 10 years later or something."
Without sort of concentrating on Rob's writing in his books, there are things in there, and I've kind of said, well, hang on, surely this is going to happen, and.
Tell the potato story. I'll let it get viral.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but with the book set in the mid 16th century, and I can't remember the characters' names or who they were talking about, but they said they couldn't knock the crust off a potato pie, and I'm thinking, but the potatoes didn't come in until Elizabethan times, so anybody in the times of Henry VIII would not even, well, they might know of a potato, but
I could have written it in. It got dropped on a boat or something. I could have.
Yeah. Saving time, wouldn't you?
I did mention that to Rob, and I think we were both a little bit embarrassed because I think, who am I to tell them?
But it's what people do now. They do it with your book, looking for mistakes, aren't they? So you've got to do it.
Yeah. So I do go through Rob's books. I got into a routine of what I'm looking for. And it's kind of it's healthy because I can now work with a certain conviction that what I'm saying is kind of right. Whether it's grammatical or to do with the story, pertinent to the story. I've got a book here which I did. There's a book here called Help the Thief. It's a punctuation grammar thing, which I've used. If I wasn't sure if I need a colon, semicolon, if I got the sort of speech in the right format. But rather than use that, look, my go-to book is a book of Treasure Island, written for children, but written in the 1880s. And if I'm not sure of, if I do a bit of speech and there's a question mark, where the question mark should sit, whether it's before the speech marks or not, I look up here, and then it's kind of, well, this is it. This is my Bible,
And one of the things Dave and I have talked about is that, as you know, Lee, anybody watching this, there are some things in the English language where you can sort of do an either or. So you get these, like pro writing aid and Grammarly, they'll sometimes conflict, but it doesn't matter much. But it is part of my story that I probably put my first book out before it was, it was right. And I don't, I'm admitting that I got a bit of a kicking for it. And Dave's an excellent proofreader, but I came to learn as well how important that process is, because we're now at a stage where we trust each other. He sends stuff back and he actually details everything, but I don't read it. I said, my upset, you don't read it. I just carry it over. I read it again for my own sake. I put it through software. There's not much needs doing. And then it's done, and for anybody out there, I think one of the big issues is that proofreading can be very, very expensive and people are nervous about doing it themselves. So, but all the same, you need your book looking at when you've written it. You really, really do. You need that stuff.
You can see it on when you look at some people's Amazon reviews, and they can be absolutely ripped to shreds on grammar and punctuation and consistency, saying, well, hang on a minute, where did that character disappear to halfway through, or the story doesn't work. And I think people at the moment, there's a lot of people trying to just rush a book to get a book out there without going through the proper steps, and I think that's obviously why we're doing what we're doing, and making sure that people create stuff that's worthy of being on these on Amazon and so on, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one thing, when I was reading Rob's books and going through them, I was very conscious about not losing his voice. So Rob will have a certain way of writing things. So I'm not going to say, oh, well, that's not proper English. You should be saying things this way, because it's the voice that's important. So I've not changed any stories. I've not changed any sort of speech. It's as it is. And I've just kind of tidied up what I perceive as sort of grammatical changes or consistency changes. If you're using a capital letter for sort of Mayor Robert, then that capital letter Mayor Robert should be all the way through the book.
I did notice that all my gags about Southerners were taken out.
They weren't jokes, Rob.
So let's talk about your bowling in your book, Dave, because that's going to be an investigative thing, isn't it? So do you want to tell us a bit more about it?
That's similar along the lines of the ancestry kind of thing, where I'm a member of the Crown Green Bowls club for Lee and the other Southerners' benefit. Crown Green Bowls is like green lime bowls, only more difficult, because you can go anywhere on the green and you can go over humps and whatever, not just up and down. Anyway, the bowling team I'm played for have been going 126 years, and due to lack of members, it's now closing because they can't get the numbers of people in the teams. So last year, I thought, well, I'll start doing research on, say, the first 50 years of the bowling club. And it was a prestigious club. It was set up by businessmen and local politicians. Mayor of Preston was one of the members. I think it was even the chairman at one time. And there's people that come and go in that club, and nobody else knows about them. So combining what I found in the club with the British newspaper archives, I then found a load of newspaper articles, of whether there's a President's Day and how many people were there, and the fact that some of the prizes was a tailored suit and a gold watch, and it wasn't just a cup or a trophy. And they would give concerts as well. You know, the members would give concerts, and it's completely different as it is today. You know, if you go somewhere, you know, you have a few beers and you expect a karaoke machine or whatever. But here, it was the members that actually, you know, did the entertainment, and there were certain characters that came out of it. There's a guy called Will Onder, who in the early 20th century was a film distributor, but prior to that, he was an acrobat. And I'm thinking, well, this is a guy that needs kind of pushing out there and more people to know about him. So what Rob's alluding to, I'm thinking of putting this all in a book, combining these newspaper cut-ins or extracts with doing ancestry background checks on the likes of Will Onder and people that set it up, and put it into a book form. So I've just realised I've given away the plot of my book.
Yeah, and we'll steal it as well now.
Yeah,
I know you will. Yeah, but it's I'm only doing the first 50 years because anything more recent, I can't find the information as easy. It's easier to find things further back, because there's no data protection so much down back there.
Have you ever sort of thought of writing before this yourself?
Not particularly. No, I would like to feel I've got a book in me, whether it's going to be fictional or, you know, as we're just saying, that maybe a factual book.
I was going to say, what about crossing over the fact and the fiction? Because it sounds like what you were saying there, you have some really good characters. Could you mix that into some sort of...
Well, who knows? Maybe I could.
There you go.
Yeah, you see? Yeah. I did think of doing some short stories. I mean, I've pointed this book out before, and they give examples. Sort of, well, I don't even know what the context is, but it says, look out, there's a train coming. And that could be the first line of a short story, you know, and then sort of build up on that. You know, I'm just going to pick another one at random if I can. A hideous old brown and yellow leather jacket. Well, you know, whose leather jacket? Why was it brown and yellow? Is that? But, you know, doing a short story, maybe 300 words or something in the story. So
it's a good place to start. It is definitely, yeah. Time always goes quick when we do these interviews, Dave. But before it's been said, you're based on all that what you've done, you know, looking through my books and research. Have you got any advice for people who are starting writing if they're watching this?
Yeah, I would say that they've got to put themselves in the place of the reader. And I know that might be difficult because you're so sort of intense and in the story, whatever. I read a story last week, and I mentioned it to Rob, and there was it talked about a pearl necklace that was worth a lot of money, and they gave it the value as a pound sign 2, 3 zeros. I'm thinking, oh, is that 2,000? But then it got dots, dot 00. Oh, sorry, comma 00. And I'm thinking, is that 2,000? Is it 200,000? Is it £2 million? So it kind of spoils it for me. So the advice is put yourself in the place of the reader, you know, and do they really mean what they're saying in their writing? You know, does the author mean what they're saying? And you know, and I would sack that other proofreader that did the other book as well, because it's obviously things. And every book's got kind of.
It does. Every book's got something, hasn't it?
So you know, it's not like it's a one-off thing. It's you know, everybody is a reader, and some look at more things than others. And I'm afraid I'm the one that will, if Rob puts a fact in a book, I will look that fact up.
This is why I stopped writing, Lee. It's very reason. And I'm a recluse.
But with your books around York, and I started looking at the places that you mentioned in York, and yes, they do exist. As I didn't expect. Well, I always know they would, but then you can get a feel for the book. But that's me as that particular type of reader. So yeah, put yourself.
This is why it's so good to have you as a sort of one of our advocates now, and helping us and making sure, you know, and keeping everything accurate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
really good.
that's it, because once it's out there, isn't it?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this. I do appreciate it, and I think it's gone really well
Cool.
too, and when we've learned a lot, and the viewers will as well. Thank you.
Okay, mate. Thank you. See you
Thanks
now.
very much. Nice to meet
I'll
you.
speak to you soon, mate. Okay.
Cheers.
Yeah, okay.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
That's all from us. So until next time, stay safe and keep enjoying those books. Please make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, and Instagram. And for more author interviews, how-to guide, and useful tips and tricks, head over to our website at meettheauthors.net.